Hi guys. Recently I've had a lot of people debating over in the comments on whether it's worth moving to the UK or not. I mean, it's not the easiest to find a job. But on the other hand, you get to visit these places. Just kidding. There's a lot more to the UK than just that. But that's what we're getting into today. The UK is a brilliant place to be. The question is it a brilliant place for you? We'll be breaking down all the reasons to move and not to move to the UK, including calculating the cost of living, the healthcare, education, and a lot more. So remember to stick around till the end. If you're new, I'm Ashika, and we talk about moving across the world for that dream job or to study. And with that, let's dive in. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Is it difficult to get jobs in the UK? The honest truth is, it is. The number of jobs that offer sponsorship compared to previous years has come down because there were basically too many people moving into the UK, which was putting a strain on all of the public resources. So the government scrapped the salary shortage list and increased the salary threshold to £38,700 for sponsored visas. Another thing is, earlier the UK was hiring in very large numbers for carer roles specifically, but that's drastically come down this year. So as a result of this, many of the employers started getting more picky with the people they were hiring. Other employers retracted offers or decided not to hire from outside the UK because they couldn't offer the minimum salary of £38,700. So obviously both experienced people and international students in the UK looking for jobs are affected because now it will take longer to land that job. Also, if you lose your job with a skilled worker visa, for instance, you have 60 days to get another sponsored job, or you would need to leave the country. And that could honestly be quite a bit of a challenge for most people looking to get another job that quickly. But on the flip side, if you were to get offered a job here, because despite everything, employers are still recruiting and offering jobs with sponsorship, there are many advantages. By the way, just in 2023, 337,000 people from outside the UK were issued work visas, so there are quite a lot of jobs being offered. The first thing is you get paid in pounds. Now, assuming you get paid a decent amount and you don't blow all of your money in shopping, you'll be able to save a little more in the UK than possibly in your home country. So even if you save £1,000 a month, that's around 1 lakh rupees in India, and that's not bad at all. Secondly, the experience you gain here will definitely strengthen your resume. So even if you were to work here for a few years and then move to a different country or move back home, the global exposure you gain by working at one of the largest and biggest global markets in the world will definitely benefit you. One more thing for you to keep in mind. The concept of dignity of labour exists in the UK, and rightly so. Unlike many countries, there are no jobs that are frowned upon or looked down on over here. Many international students who move to the UK are encouraged to get a part-time job. It could be bartending, it could be delivering food, it could be working at a fast food joint. It's all good. Many dependents also take up similar roles. As long as you're earning your money legitimately, no one really cares what you're doing, and you'll never be treated badly because you do a particular job. Next, this one is only a con, to be honest. Living in the UK, especially in cities like London, can be extremely expensive. Housing, transportation, and everyday expenses can be significantly higher compared to other countries. Now, to give you an idea of how much it can cost you to live in the UK, let's take the example of London. According to Numbeo, a family of 4 has estimated monthly costs of around £3,866 without rent. A single person has estimated monthly costs of around £1,111 without rent. And an apartment which is outside the city centre will cost you around £1,608. But here's the thing, London is notoriously more expensive, so instead let's take the example of Manchester. A family of 4 has estimated monthly costs of £2,926,000 without rent. A single person has estimated monthly costs of £858 without rent, and an apartment outside the city centre will cost you approximately £888. So there's a substantial difference, but what you need to keep in mind is that if you are moving to the UK to work and to save, you shouldn't be living in London to save more. Now, you can just use this website to calculate the approximate costs for any part of the UK that you want to consider. So how do you know if the salary you're being offered is sufficient to meet these expenses? Let's stick with the example of Manchester and assume you're offered a job that pays £50,000 a year. Hop over to the salary calculator. Like you can see here, you'll take home around £3,293 per month. Now, if you're a single person, you know you'll have to pay at least £858 as expenses and £888 as rent. So that's £1,747 as expenses every month. That leaves you with £1,546 every month as savings. Now assume you're a family of 4. Your expenses would be £2,926 and £1,913 for rent. So your total monthly expenses would be £4,839. You already know the salary you'll earn is not enough, even if it's substantially higher than what you are currently earning right now. So you'll either have to get offered more, or your partner will need to work, or you'll have to move somewhere even cheaper than Manchester, but then you'll end up paying quite a bit in terms of transport. What I'm trying to tell you is that the UK is expensive. The salaries are high, but so are the expenses. So ensure you do your calculations before you accept a job, before you hop on that plane to look for a job in the UK, or even before you take admissions with a university with the goal of getting a job here. If you aren't saving more than you're earning, and if you aren't saving more than you're already saving in whichever country you are in right now, it is not worth moving. Now, moving on. Something most people take for granted is their surroundings. But pollutants are one of the biggest reasons for people falling ill. So a little backstory. I grew up in Oman and completed my schooling there, and then I moved to India, studied and worked there for around 15 years, and then moved here. Now, every time I moved, there was a stark difference in surroundings. I constantly suffered from a dust allergy in Bangalore and almost always had a migraine. But here, I don't have a problem with allergies, and my migraines have basically drastically dropped. I can drink water from the tap, I breathe in fresh air every day, where we live is so quiet you can hear the birds chirp. And all of these things become even more important when you have children. Because to be honest, you don't want your children breathing bad air or drinking unclean water. And the UK is definitely winning on all of these accounts. Now, another point a lot of us take for granted is our freedom. There are lots of times I want to post something about an issue that's happening back home, but then I think to myself, that's probably not the smartest thing for me to do. Because to be honest, people have been arrested for posting messages on social media calling out certain parties in India. But here, no one cares. Back home, I felt unsafe at so many points that I've lost count. If you go out at night, it's safer to go out with men accompanying you. If you're going to a public place, you have to watch out for what you wear, for what you say, for what you eat, for what you drink. I've been groped innumerable times, and it has happened to so many other women. There's no such issues here. Of course, there are certain parts of London and certain other cities that are unsafe, but that's in very small pockets. Largely, the UK is very safe. So a story real quick. This one time I was taking the dogs out and it was 9 p.m. and suddenly I hear the sound of many men cheering, so naturally I got worried and braced myself for like a passing car or something. But no car passed by. And then I saw something moving, so I looked up and it was a bunch of geese flying. That was the sound they were making. The point is, as women, fear is so ingrained in us, which is such a bad thing. Who wants to live in constant fear? But here, I don't need to. The freedom our entire family experiences here is something we do not take for granted. Now, one big challenge of living in the UK is if you want to buy a house at any point. Just like with the rents, the prices of houses are very high in the UK. Now, where we live, for example, the average price of a house is £562,000. The national average of the price of houses is £264,000, but to be honest, you won't find a house for that price in any of the cities, and especially not down south. Unlike that, in India, for instance, you can still buy houses. The prices are higher in cities, but become a lot more reasonable towards the edges of the cities or in towns, and they can still be afforded on an average salary. Here, even in a town, if you do decide to buy a house, you will be paying a mortgage all of your life, and it's still going to be pretty high because of the rates of lending, and which have absolutely gone through the roof. Now, when it comes to healthcare, it's a little tricky because there are both pros and cons. If you come to the UK from a different country, you'll have to pay for healthcare initially. It will be the IHS cost that you pay as a part of your visa. But after all of that, all of your doctor's appointments and your treatments will be free because technically you've already paid for it. You will have to pay for your medicines and for your dental procedures. Of course, there are some dentists that are part of the NHS, but that's a very small portion. But your blood tests and your surgeries are free. Now, once you become a resident, you won't have to pay for it separately because healthcare will be accounted for from your taxes that go towards paying the NHS. And the doctors and the services are really good. It's not that it's poor healthcare because it's public healthcare. You don't have to worry about the quality at all. But the challenge comes in terms of the waiting times. Now, the NHS is so severely understaffed that it is not uncommon to have to wait for a month for an appointment or for a blood test. And if you want to go to the emergency ward, depending on how crowded it is, your wait time could be around 4 to 5 hours, a lot more sometimes on average. So good healthcare, eventually free when you get your ILR, but terrible wait times. Of course, one of the flip sides is that when you move to the UK, you'll have to do all of your work from cooking to cleaning to mowing the lawn to assembling your own furniture, washing your own dishes. Look, I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of work, especially if you're not used to doing it yourself. Also assume it's going to be difficult to hire help because it's really expensive. The hourly labor cost in the UK is very high. But of course it depends from person to person. So I don't mind doing it as much because I work from home, but my husband absolutely hates housework. Now I would love the help, but in the absence of paid help, I can manage myself. You need to decide which side of the fence you are on. But if you do decide to do your own housework, you will be rewarded with world-class education, close proximity to Europe, and these absolutely stunning views, which to be honest, are probably some of the most gorgeous views you'll see in your life. So now it's up to you to decide if you want to try and get that job in the UK or study in the UK. Like every country, the UK has its pros and cons. No country is perfect. But remember, it's not the only country to consider. While the UK might be perfect for us, it's not necessarily perfect for you. But on the flip side, just because the UK didn't work out for your friends or for someone in the comments, it does not mean it won't work out for you. Do your research and make that decision for yourself. Don't blindly listen to me or to any YouTuber or to anyone in the comments. Now, I hope this helps. Drop me a comment below if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.